All right. We will give it a few minutes like we always do. Today's Saturday, so I hope we get a decent number of folks in here today. I know a lot of times when I do these, folks come back later on. They're like, oh, I didn't know you're having a stream. So I don't know. I tried changing the keywords up a little bit today. And the topic of today's discussion is, and we're not going to make this a huge 2-hour thing, but the topic of today's discussion is something I mentioned in a lot of my videos. We're going to be talking about Invicta watches. We're going to be talking about Aragon watches. We're going to be talking about Rolex watches. We're just going to be talking about watches in general. Of course, it's an open floor for anybody who wants to ask me any kind of questions. Some folks have, specific questions about a product I reviewed, whether it be, a jacket, a smart camera, a car stereo. So I'm here for you guys to kind of catch up. I always enjoy doing these things. I wish YouTube had a different kind of medium where you guys could actually pop on kind of like a almost like a video conference call or like a Zoom call. But I don't know. I've been talking about maybe doing something like that for years, but time will tell, man. We'll see. So at least we have the chat section right now, and that's kind of cool. But again, what I want to talk about today is what I consider check boxes, and I mentioned this in a lot of different videos, in what to look for a watch. In this kind of video, I wanted to be honest with you, what I'm doing right now is transferring files, other videos I've recorded for watch reviews and other products over to my desktop. And so when I do that, my media card's kind of tied up at the moment, so I can't record new content. So if you're just come on here and just kind of shoot the shit with you guys and talk a little bit about watches and some of my opinions. This video mainly sparked today's live feed. That didn't make any sense. This video is kind of sparked by James Perez, one of my subscribers and kind of online virtual friends now. He just basically sent me a video regarding a very well-known YouTuber and somebody in the watch community who is, extremely well-known, Long Island Watch. And he just did kind of a breakdown of what does it mean to be Swiss-made and some of the things that I've been talking about for years and years. And why, I remember the things I say are my opinions, of course, but a lot of the opinions are based on factual information and evidence. So there is no there is no arguing about what Swiss made actually means. We know what it means. And again, I'm not going to just, read the entire article about, what it means. You guys can research that on your own, but, these are our valid points and things that I think why a lot of the watch community, and I don't mean the people in the watch community who are well aware of this. I mean, the people who are like new to the watch community, just maybe want to buy one or two watches. Maybe, remember, this isn't rocket science. You don't have to get all kinds of expert advice to decide to buy a watch, right? I mean, my number one advice for people when they ask me questions about, what should I buy or what do you think of this is, well, what do you think of that watch? Do you like it? And really, it doesn't really matter what brand you buy. You should really buy things based on what calls to you and what you really like. Now, there are things about a watch or features about a watch that I personally look for, and I call them check boxes. I've kind of coined that term, the watch buying check boxes on this channel, because I think they are important. I think they use, I use a lot of common sense when I buy anything, right? When I do anything. So but my major check boxes they're not insanely hard to find in a watch, right? But ultimately, it doesn't really matter what your budget is or what your your experience is. Ultimately, at the end of the day, there's so many great watches out there at so many different price points. It's really very easy to find something you're going to like. And remember, it doesn't necessarily have to be, the one watch you purchase is like, oh, if I don't buy the right one, like the world ends and I can never buy another one. Like you can buy $100 watch and say, hey, you know what? I enjoy this watch, or hey, maybe I spent $500. I'm like, yeah, I wish I would have spent less. This watch doesn't really do it for me, or this watch, I'm seeing other watches for a lot less that I would have been just as happy with. So remember, it's a learning experience and it's not hard. It's not rocket science, and you don't have to be an expert to just enjoy collecting watches in this particular discussion, but really anything in general. Ultimately, it's the same thing with the fragrance community. So many people are like, oh, it's synthetic when it comes to affordable fragrances. And I just never get it. Like, I don't get the word synthetic. I don't really understand what exactly these folks are smelling. I think a lot of times they say synthetic when I think they if you get a cheaper fragrance, this isn't about fragrances today, but if you get a cheaper fragrance, an affordable fragrance, sometimes those fragrances are rather kind of diluted down, right? Like if you go to the Dollar Tree and buy a designer imposter and you spray it, it's going to be very watery, right? It's going to be a lot of alcohol. You're probably going to get a big blast of alcohol because there's not a lot of other ingredients in it to kind of mask that. Remember, all fragrances have alcohol in it, right? So, but a lot of people throw that word around, synthetic. Oh, it smells synthetic, when really it's not really an accurate description. What they're really probably smelling is just a weak, inexpensive cologne. And there's fragrances that cost $20 that there's no way in hell. If I told somebody, hey, this is a brand new release, it's about $300, it's by this particular company, Tom Ford, they'd be like, oh, it's incredible. So people just kind of they kind of overthink things and sometimes delude themselves into spending more for things, right? Drakkar, I don't have Drakkar, man. And I will kind of go back and forth with the comments too during this video and answer those. Rob just said I rock Drakkar. I haven't smelled Drakkar for years. I know when I was younger, I probably would have hated Drakkar. However, now it is one I've been wanting to add to my collection. And it's super cheap and it is a classic. So I just sprayed on a sample of Dolce & Gabbana Gray. I think it's Gray, something like that, Gray something. And I kind of come back to these fragrances. I don't wear them for a while, especially when I have a lot of samples. And I'm always amazed. I'm always like, oh, God, this is good. How did I not wear this before? Like, how have I not gone through the bottle already? So, all right, so let's begin. We only have 4 people in here right now, but remember, it's an open floor. If you want to talk cologne or car audio, whatever you want to do, chime in there. I will answer your questions. And remember, even though we only have 4 people watching right now, people catch this on the rerun. So what is some of the things? And again, this video is sparked by James Perez, who sent me a link to Long Island Watch talking about the Swiss made designation. And how it really, he didn't want to come out and say this, but I'm going to say this. It's really a meaningless feature that you should when buying a watch, it really should be irrelevant. Really, the term Swiss made nowadays, to me, the only real reason somebody would really care if a watch said that would be so they can brag about it. So they can be like, oh, Swiss made, because we have this older perception that Swiss made is like, oh, super high quality, right? And there was a time in which that actually meant something, but now it doesn't. You have Rolex watches, which are Swiss made. And let's face it, we all know I'm not a Rolex fan, not because I don't appreciate the brand or what goes into making a Rolex watch, but just because I don't see the value in spending that much money for a watch when I know that you're not getting that much more for your money as far as real world things you can feel and see, right? You kind of have to be a person, make a mountain out of a molehill when nitpicking a Rolex watch, right? So again, if that's what you really like and enjoy, and that's something you've always wanted, it's not my job to tell you what you should buy. You should definitely buy it if you feel comfortable with the price point, but just don't delude yourself that you're going to get a watch that when you put it on just makes this, Nubeo feel like a piece of dog shit, or one of the other homage watches I got by Dexo. There's going to be little differences, absolutely. And if you really kind of, nitpick the watch and really look deep into the watch with a jeweler's loop, sure, you're going to see differences. But at the end of the day, all these watches work really well until time. So the designation Swiss made, remember, you could have a $100 Pro Diver, and I'm not sure exactly which ones. I'm just saying that there are Pro Divers, maybe. Let's not use 100. Maybe at this point, maybe like $200 or $300, and many other brands out there that say Swiss made. When really you have a Rolex watch that truly is, if we're talking in terms of Swiss made. Again, I don't work for Rolex. I can't confirm or deny this, but it's safe to assume I think that everything about the Rolex is probably made in Switzerland, right? Whereas like a watch, many of the Chinese watches out there, a lot of the other brands out there, they fall within the designation of Swiss made. And I can only assume that the reason behind the people still using Swiss made is the perception people have. And of course, I think the only reason why the description Swiss made has become so loose is because there must be, and again, I don't know this, so correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe there's some sort of like fee you would have to pay to use the Swiss made designation. I just don't really know that. Again, don't quote me on that. I'm just assuming what would be the motivation for, I guess, is a Swiss Federation or Swiss made, whoever controls that designation. What's the motivation for making it so loose? Like if it means Swiss made, then the watch should be made 100% in Switzerland. That would be the true definition of Swiss made. But though it's become so watered down, it is absolutely meaningless in my opinion. So now let's talk about check boxes. So again, if you're new to this channel, if you kind of catch this video and you have never been to Phatkat Collections before, I'm really down to earth. I'm not a watch snob by any means. I've had battles with some of these knuckleheads out there, and ultimately, I don't like to offend anybody. I mean, that's not my goal in doing that. Always buy who you like. I would never fault somebody for wanting to own a specific watch. It's just for me, I see the difference. My argument with luxury brands is always going to be the fact that they try to knock the affordable brands because they have to rationalize why they spent that much money. And a lot of times people just won't admit that they spent that much money for the name. They really want the name. They want the status symbol that comes with the name, because it is like wearing, your bank account. Take that with a grain of salt on your wrist. You're bragging without actually bragging. When you're wearing a Rolex watch, people see it and they're like, oh my God, this guy must be successful. This guy must have money. And I think everybody likes that feeling. And I think that's why a lot of people gravitate towards that brand because of that, right? And that's why guys tend to gravitate, past Rolex when they really are balling into brands like Patek and AP and Jacob & Company. Those brands that are really, I think, just, well, I don't consider AP. I don't consider them works of art, to be honest with you. I consider brands like Jacob & Company works of art. They're really quite special. Again, in my opinion, this is just my opinion on what I like and what I appreciate. But I just feel like luxury brands, it's really about bragging. And if you look at our music industry, a lot of I was watching Bill Maher the other night, and he was discussing how music has just become this bragging like session for like all the brands. You see it in rap music, see it in country music now, you see it in pop music. People just talking about their Gucci, talking about their Louis Vuitton, talking about their Rolex. I would call it the money they have. And that's really what a lot of music has become. And so these brands are just really, it's about status and bragging about how much money that you have, how successful you are. And it really doesn't have anything to do with quality. I'm not saying these brands are low quality, but they're not like some kind of insane quality you can't get with just a standard regular leather purse that's well made, right? Well made is well made, and it doesn't really matter. There's no justification in my eyes why you could charge or how you could charge $1,000 for a Louis Vuitton purse when you can go and spend a couple $100 or $100, whatever they cost, for a high quality leather bag, right? It's just complete nonsense. I saw another video, Andrew Tate. I'm not a big fan, but there was some clip I saw. You guys know if you don't know, I really like leather jackets. One thing I really collect. I just picked up a python leather jacket from Indonesia. It's kind of one of those places you have to go to find stuff like this. And so I was able to get one. I absolutely love it. The quality is insane. But Andrew Tate was doing a video where he's like, oh, it's $19,000. He, bragging, of course, spent $19,000. But it's like, dude, you got totally ripped off. Not that he cares, because the fun for a guy like that is bragging about how much he spent, right, on the jacket. That to me is not. And again, I'm making an assumption here, but to me, I don't think he loved the jacket as much as he loved the fact it cost $19,000. But again, that jacket, is it nicer quality than one I paid $300, $400 for? Maybe a little bit, maybe not, right? So it's just a big game being played. So when we're talking about watches specifically, major check boxes. Number one, when it comes to anybody, whatever your experience level is when buying a watch, is one, do you like the watch? Like, is it something that you see and you get excited about and you say, man, I'm like, and I'm not saying this has to be this way for everybody. Everybody's different. But I think it's something that whether you get super excited about or you're very reserved and you're like, I like that watch. This is a watch I can see myself wearing. Like, whatever your personality is like, that's okay. But you should like the watch. It should be something that you feel proud to wear and that you want to wear. And even if you're buying it for reasons I don't agree with, it says Rolex, it says, some luxury brand, that is the number one checkbox. Do you genuinely like it, and do you want to wear it, right? So that's number one. Number two, almost number one, but number two for me, and I think really realistically, this can arguably really be said for any watch, is what is it made out of, right? What kind of material? Are you picking up a watch? It's like if you were to pick up a very inexpensive, like I did a review on a Biden watch, right? Not related to Joe Biden, or any other president or anything like that. It wasn't a Trump watch, but it's just called Biden, right? So these Chinese names. I bought it because it was really cheap. It was like $30, and it had like an iced out bezel. And at the time, I didn't have anything with red and black stones. Really cheap watch, but it was fun, and I enjoyed getting it, right? I think I wore it once. But when you pick up that watch, you can feel the difference in quality. It's not stainless steel. It's some sort of plated alloy of some type of metal. It's very lightweight, and lightweight doesn't always determine quality. I don't want to make it sound like, oh, if it's heavier it is, the better. It's not the case always. But, this is not made of 316. And really in a watch, the only material, there are different materials. You can get watches that are like tungsten, which I've yet to own one, but I would like to get one eventually, just due to it's like a very dense and heavy material. There's ceramic watches, there's gold, there's platinum, and all these materials are great, right? These are all great materials, but anything under 316 stainless steel, to me, it doesn't mean don't buy it, but just kind of know that's kind of like the bar for me. That's where I like to be when it comes to a watch. If it's made of 316 stainless steel, then you're getting a good quality material in the watch. Next to that, right, after that, then we come into more subjective check boxes. And I'm just going to give you mine, and then we'll talk about what other people look for. For me, is what kind of movement does it have at this point? Is it a quartz or is it an automatic? A lot of times when we look at brands like Invicta, they do make lots of automatics. I understand that. But a lot of their watches do use Ronda quartz movements. So, for me, I'll always gravitate more towards an automatic. I like a clean dial with not a lot of chronographs. I don't use a chronograph. A chronograph is just a stopwatch. That's all it is. And I don't use that. And I don't really like the cluttered dial. Although there are some watches that are like, for instance, Ronda's, the Master Calendar series. I really like all the different dials and how they lay that out. So that's a quartz I definitely gravitate towards. If it has that movement and I'm buying quartz, I do get a little more excited about that than just like a standard Ronda's, Z60, right? So again, though, if it has an automatic, that's always going to be my first choice, right? Is it an automatic? And on the, kind of another part of that is what kind of automatic movement? Is it an off-brand, like no-name brand movement, right? Or is it one of the big players out there, the Repl movements? And what do we have? Let's face it. Miyota, we got Seiko's NH series, or, we have /TMI. What else we got? We got Miyota. I'm drawing a blank. ETA, Values, Solitas, right? These are really your big off-the-shelf movements that are being sold to all different kind of micro brand companies. If they're not doing the movement in-house, then generally they're using one of these movements. And all these movements are great. I hear it sometimes too with people I really like and people like me and my channel who are like, oh, I wish this has, they went to a Miyota or they went to a Seiko NH35. I wish it had the Miyota. And my question to that is like, why? They all tell time really well. Like it's not like you're going to get the Miyota and you're losing an hour a day. It's like, I'm late to work every day. This Miyota is just awful. It's just not like that. They don't work really well. So even if you get a cheap, no-name brand Chinese copy of one of these movements, that as many watches on like AliExpress you get that have automatics that just are no-name brand movements. But remember, these Repl movements have been reverse engineered, and just because it's a no-name brand movement doesn't mean it's inferior. It's probably exactly the same thing. It just doesn't have the branding on it. So again, that's for me, that's a checkbox. But if it's a watch I really like and it's not an automatic, I will make the exception to go with the quartz. Absolutely. I just don't like having to know I'm going to have to put a battery in at some point, because ultimately, to be honest with you folks, I don't really replace a lot of batteries. Generally, when the battery dies, I just wear the watch not working. So, because they're more of fashion pieces for me. They're accessories. It's not really so much a tool. We all got our cell phones, right? And I've said it before, and I like to make fun of myself a little. Whenever anybody asks me, because they usually will see a watch I'm wearing, right? If it's like an Invicta or, whatever. Sometimes people just notice the watch, right? And they're like, and they ask you for the time specifically to check out your watch, right? And so whenever they do, as long as I get a little, not embarrassed, but I get a little embarrassed, right? I just kind of like, and I have to actually count, because as a kid, I kind of tell time by, like, for instance, like, this isn't even 7 right now, but like 11:30, like I can look at that quick and see it, but like, so I have to count like 35, 45, 55. And half time I'm like, I just pull up my phone and tell them, right? I'm sorry, I don't tell time really well. So for a guy with 360 watches, you'd think I'd be able to tell time really well, but it is what it is, right? So that's just my silly personality. But I'll still, again, when it comes to movement, I'm still fine with the quartz if I like the watch enough, right? And again, the price is in line, which that's another checkbox too, is, for me, is what is the price point, To be honest with you, anything over $300 for me, I have to really like that watch very rarely, very, oh, in here already? The hell? Maybe we get a new watch. Very rarely for me do uh, I spend over $300 for a watch, and that's it's easier for me because I work with a lot of companies, so I'm getting free stuff all the time. So it's feeding my need, my desire for new stuff, right? So I'm a little bit. I can't relate in the same way to the standard consumer, but that doesn't mean I still don't always look at the Aragon site, look at the Bulova site. Perfect example is there's a new Bulova watch out that I really like. It's got kind of like that kind of Doxa case, vintage case. It's like a rose gold, it's like a root beer style, right? In that color combination, and I totally dig it. But I'm not going to pay $1,000 for it. There's no way, because I just know you're not getting anything that much better or better at all. You're just really paying for a huge markup. But I really like it, right? But I'm still not going to spend the money on it. It's just like my Precisionist when I got it. I absolutely fell in love, because I fall in love with every watch, but I'm a watch whore. But I'm like a terrible addiction. But like my Bulova Precisionist, I remember when I first saw it, I said, "Ooh, what is that?" He's like, "Precisionist." His wife was like, $700. And I was like, I'd never buy that. But I found them cheaper at one point when I don't know if the market was just in a spot. I got it for like $280, and it's great. You can't get that watch for that price anymore. But I'm really glad I got it. So if that Bulova, to my point, if that new Bulova was like $280, I probably would pull the trigger on it, because I definitely dig it. But it just depends. Price is going to be a checkbox for most folks, right? Now, after that, then you start getting involved in checkboxes that aren't really too important to me. But for a lot of folks, and I want to mention these because it is important for a lot of people, is what kind of crystal does a watch have, right? Is it a sapphire? Is it acrylic? Is it plexi? Is it K1, Cristerna, Flame Fusion? There's a video, and I keep meaning to like do another video and reference this video, but there's a video where they actually use a scratch test kit, right? With these different crystals, Flame Fusion, K1, and what they found was naturally Sapphire was the most scratch resistant, but Flame Fusion extremely close, right? And all the other ones were still very scratch resistant. So you're purposely trying to scratch these crystals to prove a point, but yet in the standard normal world of everybody in their normal day-to-day life, you're probably not going to scratch any of these crystals, right? So, all right, so let me pause on that checkbox. Let me answer some questions, because we're getting a lot today, which is really great. And again, thank you folks for dropping in and dropping some questions. I'm just going to start off. I already I responded to Rob Farrell. He just said when I first started the video about cologne, he says he rocks your car. Laughed my ass off, he said, but I don't think that's funny. I know why he's saying it's really old, but Drakkar is a fantastic fragrance. It's still super popular. It's been popular for 20 plus years. There's a reason why. Rob also said I have Invicta Quadro. It's functioning pinball machine. Yeah, I think I'm familiar with that one. Very cool, very cool. Scott said, welcome, Scott. He's thank you for joining us today again. And Scott pops in most of the time. I like wearing all kinds. I got a Rolex from my dad when he passed, and I enjoy wearing it. I don't like the high-end brands that are very flashy looking, although I wear my Pro Diver or Sub Aqua Specialty. I think that's the SAS. Yeah, man, absolutely. Like I'm sure Scott will tell you that there are maybe some differences in that Rolex, but they're not insane differences between the Pro Diver and the Rolex, right? Rob also said, most of my Invictas are flash, but all my Aragons are classy. That is subjective, of course. Israel, what up, man? He said Biden is the brand. That's hilarious. Yeah, Biden. Yeah, they sometimes the Chinese brands, they probably think like, oh, American like Biden brand, and then make a lot. I don't know. So yeah, so that's the watch. Adrian, what up, man? He said, hey, Phatkat Pagani Explorer 1 turned up last week, $80, 100% happy with it. Best bang for buck. New watch I have it in the watch collection. Cheers. Thank you for sharing. NH35 movement, a classic, great movement. Rob also said can't go wrong with the NH35. Adrian said absolutely cheers. And I'm reading this off because some folks are listening like without actually looking at the chat, so you guys know what's being said. Israel said these days these Chinese are able to clone most of these movements, so it means less than it used to. Chinese manufacturing has come a long way since the 80s. Yep, I say it all the time when I reference watches in my videos and really anything that I review. The Chinese did not sit back for the last 30 years and just say, oh, we can only make this so good. Remember back in the electronics days, you had to have a Japanese electronics. Anything that was not Japanese was what people say. It's kind of like watch. They say dog shit. There was some truth to that, though. Modern when we look at, fake Rolex watches from the 80s, right? They were cheap. They were garbage, right? They weren't very good. Nowadays, that's just not the case. They have gotten so good at what they do. They don't sit back and just say, oh, can't seem to figure this out. They find a way to figure it out, and they find a way to clone it. So it's just, that's why we have so many amazing watches for an amazing price point. The differences that you get now with a luxury brand are not the differences you got between the 80s. Here's the 80s. Sorry, this is just really rough, right? The 80s difference in quality, like inexpensive watch, Rolex. Here's the difference. Now, the manufacturer's gotten so good. Here's your difference. But people like the snobs are still living in the past. Adrian also said, Rob said, that's how I feel about Swiss brand. Like we were talking about, it can be Swiss parts, but those parts can be assembled anywhere. Yeah, there's very strict designation, but I shouldn't say strict. There's definitely designations on when you can use that designation. And I encourage you to check out Long Island Watch did a video that James Perez shared with me today about that, and kind of like more in detail, right? So pretty cool. Rob said anything over 500 better braided tourbillon. And see, yeah, Rob, and see, there's the interesting thing too. Tourbillons used to be insanely expensive, and now you're seeing them really come down in price. When you look at the technology it takes to produce an NH35 or a Chinese branded tourbillon, it's not much of a difference, right? I'm not privy to the information, but when you look at the difference in parts, this is not a NASA space shuttle. This is not a brand new Ferrari. These are relatively simple. The mechanics behind this, these are relatively simple machines, right? So, all right, let's see here. Rob also said he has an Invicta Man Award, double open heart. Rob said it's pronounced Pharaoh. No, it's pronounced Pharaoh. Okay. Rob says, laugh his ass off Biden. There are differences between, Scott said, there are differences between Rolex and the Invicta. My dad's Rolex is really old, so it's not as nice as the new Rolexes. Yep, perfect example. We don't want to just compare. Like when I say, there's not a lot of difference, right? We're looking at a modern Invicta versus an older Rolex. Absolutely. That's like kind of flipping the comparison, right? So we don't want to, that's not a fair comparison, because if we compare that like 80s Rolex to an 80s like Seiko, you'll see more of a noticeable difference. But my point is that the differences have become smaller from modern Invicta to modern Bulova to modern Rolex. Because remember, this isn't Rolex doesn't have some insane like top secret machining process. Like to make a watch link, it's kind of the same. Whether you're doing it in China, you're doing it in Switzerland, you're doing it in Germany, the process, the machining behind it is relatively the same. So just kind of keep that in mind. Rob said, I meant my Invicta usually has a gimmicks like my Speedway, the spinning brake rotor. Rob and Scott are kind of, I'm gonna skip that, going back and forth a little bit, not in a bad way. Seiko and Grand Seikos are class, nice makes. Right, Rolex evolved as well, Scott. Yep, absolutely. Rolex has evolved as well. And then Rob said, what's your recommendation on bronze watches? So let me get through the check boxes, and then I'll come back to that. So, all right. So next checkbox, we left off on crystal, right? The next checkbox for a lot of folks is going to be something like, and these are starting, this is where we're starting to nitpick a little bit, is how is the bracelet put together? Are they friction pins, or are they like screws, right? Both function just as well. One is not better than another. One is maybe, depending on your tool set, one might be a little more convenient to size, right? So really they're meaningless. Another checkbox is what kind of clasp? Is it a stamped clasp, or is it a milled clasp? The milled clasp, of course, looks nicer cosmetically, but it doesn't function any different than a standard stamped clasp, right? Then you start going down a long list of, other check boxes. For instance, what's the bezel feel like? And of course, this is an indication of the process for producing this watch, the tolerances. Generally, most watches in that $100 and up price range, I don't see any difference in the bezels. The only bezels that I have that are sloppy are $20, $30 watches, so it's really kind of meaningless. And then after that, we start looking at things like, screw down crown and all these little things that might be important to folks. But the big stuff, the major stuff, screw down crown or not, crystal, sapphire or not, is do you like it, and what is a watch made out of, right? And if you have a 3/16 stainless steel watch, and you have the movement you're looking for, or an automatic versus quartz, you are getting a nice quality watch. When they start talking about things like fit and finish, and I'll give you this kind of example, right? Fit and finish. I've heard this for years. Fit and finish of a luxury brand. Fit and finish. Fit and finish. When we look at the fit and finish of a watch, fit and finish has to do with the polishing and how the pieces go together, right? Remember, every watch is manufactured with different tolerances for different reasons. It's not because they couldn't do it. I have two Duxo watches here. One, I would say, has a better, we compare the bracelets on these. One might argue that one has a better fit and finish. When we look at the tolerances on this Jubilee, this faux Jubilee bracelet, or this homage bracelet to Jubilee, it's very, as the urban gentry said, jingly jangly, right? But that's its design in nature. When we compare it to like this homage presidential bracelet, there's no bending, right? There's not a lot of movement there. And that's just the nature of the bracelet. It's not that they couldn't, like, it's not that one is better than another. It's just one is different and machined different, right? Not, again, this is designed to be this way. This is not, right? They're just two different animals. And so the fit and finish on these, when we start looking at the fit, these, when we look at these watches, there is no like gaps where the bracelet connects to the case, right? The tolerances are tight. There's nothing crooked. There's nothing flopping around where it's like, oh, that didn't go together, right? There's no bezel falling off or jingling around, right? The crown doesn't feel gritty. It's smooth. So all these things is almost laughable when they talk about fit and finish of watches, because if you just get good quality nowadays, good quality's here, and here's your luxury market, right? These little things that you might put the watch under macro lens and see, wow, that was hand painted. That's perfect, right? Somebody really took the time to do that. But what is the result of that stuff that you can't see? It costs you more money. That's really, at the end of the day, really what it comes down to. All right, let me come back to the questions. Okay, so what is my recommendation on bronze watches? Honestly, I don't have a lot of bronze watches. I think I have 2 or 3. I have 1 brass, maybe 2 bronze. I don't really have a recommendation on that. I will state that I am a huge fan of Oceaniva watches. They make a great looking bronze dress watch. And bronze isn't really, I used to look at bronze and say, oh man, I love bronze, right? That color, you get the patina. But one thing about bronze that I don't like is you kind of have to wear it on either a silicone strap or a leather strap. There's not many companies who make a bronze bracelet. I'm more of a bracelet guy. Even though I'm wearing this Nubeo right now, right, with the silicone. I wear all watches, but generally I feel like a bronze watch it's just more of that aged, kind of like brown leather, bronzy-ish kind of look, right? And I don't really gravitate too much to that. I do have a couple with Tiger Eye. It's great, but I don't have a lot of recommendations. But I would check out the Oceaniva. It's a good looking piece. All right. Israel said 316 904 metal's metal. It reminds me of college, butt is butt. That's right, right? Well, you might have a big fat ass. You might have a little anorexic ass, right? I mean, yeah, I feel you. I hear what you're saying, all joking aside. And I agree. This is what I call manufacturer desire. It's when a company produces something to charge you more with this manufacturer desire, trying to provide a feature and action, a benefit. That's kind of like sales 101. Feature, action, benefit when you're selling something. What is the feature? What is the action? And what is the benefit to the customer? With 904, it's manufactured, right? 904 stainless steel is mainly meant to be used in chemical plant applications, right? Where there's really caustic materials that really need the extra corrosion resistance. I joke all the time. I'll say it again. Am I going to become a mermaid? Am I going to become a little crab, roaming around the ocean floor with my watch on my wrist? No. And so it's really meaningless. It's not going to provide any benefit to people. Again, they try to make the argument that there's a higher luster. It doesn't have that. That's delusional thinking. There is no visual difference that I've ever seen between 904 and 316. There just might be a finish difference. Mirror polishing is mirror polishing. You can polish aluminum. You can polish stainless steel. You can polish things to be shiny, brushed, or matte finish. Polishing is polishing. It just depends. There are finer details of polishing, but as far as the material having a higher luster or a deeper look, this is just nonsense to me. I don't see any difference at all. I will state that I believe 904 is a little softer, and I think maybe the advantage to Rolex wanting to use that is that they can buff it out to make these watches look even nicer on the pre-owned market for retailers, stuff like that. So it's easier to kind of buff out, but I don't know how much easier. I've never done that before. So at the end of the day, makes no difference. Rob said, Scott said, Dad's had the stamp clasp, but it's very comfortable. However, maybe not as durable as some newer clasps for decades. I don't agree with that. I mean, I don't think there's any difference in clasps. Durability really comes down to, I guess time will tell that. And I have, again, over 360 watches, many stamped clasps, many milled clasps, and there's, some are, 20 years old, and there is no difference in longevity. One, I think, if you get one that's put together properly and it's made correct, then it's going to last just as long as anything else. It's like saying that, like, my set of my Antero wheels that I paid $4,000 for my Honda back in the day, $4,000 Italian made wheels, that those are going to last longer than the stock Honda wheels. Not the case. It's just, it's really not. Rob said, yeah, one of those wear on special occasions. Scott, he was responding to Scott, exactly, brother. Dominic, welcome. He said, greeting from Sweden. Got the Invicta Kraken. Blue gold is my favorite. What do you think of the Kraken? I love your channel. Thank you. I appreciate the compliment. I'd have to look the Kraken up. I kind of have an image in my head. I like all watches. I appreciate them all. I don't own the Kraken, so it's probably not one that I really, felt the real drive to buy. As far as Invicta watches, the ones that have been on my radar for a while is a full-size Gladiator in gold and green, but I didn't want to pay $300 for it. And I really like the green and gold Helios. That one's been on my radar. But other than that, not too many. I've been, again, I remember I have a lot. So it has to be something really unique for me to buy it. And there are some Invictas I would love to have with black diamonds, but I'm not going to spend $1,500 on an Invicta watch, or really any watch for that matter, right? Comment said, great watch in color. Rob said, very nice. Yes, I agree. And cool. All right, so back to the conversation. So so those are kind of my check boxes and the things that I think that anybody with kind of common sense and who's being real with themselves can honestly, these are things to look for when buying a watch. As far as, again, the quality and getting a quality piece. But number one, I always revert back to number one. Now, even if a watch doesn't have them, like I bought some Pin Time, black iced out, really cheap, crummy watches on Amazon for like $20. But yes, I know that it doesn't have the quality of like, some of the other watches I have or most of the other watches I have, but it's got all those stones on it and it's fun. And that's, that was, sometimes you only need one checkbox. Do I like it? And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what it's made out of or what kind of movement it has. It's just, do I dig this watch? Do I want to have it in my collection? And that should really, I always will revert back to that one first. So lots of good information there. And remember, we're going to talk about something else too. When it comes to the control companies have over a lot of the micro brands and smaller brands. I work with a company. I may or may not have said the name already, but this company, Oceaniva, this company makes amazing watches, right? I've been a fan of Oceaniva for a while. They make some really robust tool watches, right? You put them to the test, right? That's what they're there for. I love the brand. I've been working with them for a while, and they recently had a situation come up with Seiko. And Seiko basically threatened legal action against them because they were using the name Seiko NH35 to describe the movement that is in the watch. So what he told me is that a lot of these, like Seiko, they don't like the fact that that other companies are selling watches that, in my opinion, are nicer or as nice. I don't have every Seiko here to compare it to, but you generally pay a premium for Seiko over watches that are very comparable. And in addition to that, watches that actually house in a automatic Seiko movement. So you have to ask yourself, well, I'm getting this steel dive watch for $100, this Captain Willard homage for $99, and then I want to buy the Captain Willard by Seiko. You'll get $1,000 plus. They both have Seiko automatic movement. So they're both 316 stainless steel. So why would I pay more for the Seiko when I'm getting a watch that's just as good for a tenth of the price, right? So companies like that will try to prevent folks from using the Seiko name. And this is what recently happened with Oceaniva. They when it comes to eBay and Amazon, they don't mess around. They don't get involved in legal battles. If a company makes a complaint regarding copyright, they basically just say, hey, we're pulling the listing. Just like if you try to list a homage Rolex watch on, let's say you get tired of one of your homage watches. I get tired of this Duxo watch, right? I'm like, I'm going to throw it on eBay. I'm not allowed to say, you know, Duxo Rolex Submariner homage. They will pull the listing because Rolex doesn't want anybody using that name at all, right? Because it's competition, right? They don't want you using their name to find another watch. With the Oceaniva, it's not quite the same. Like they're legitimately buying these movements. It's not like they pulled a Seiko movement out of a Seiko watch illegally, slapped it in their watch, and then start selling it using the Seiko name. This falls under fair use. It's a descriptive section, right? So basically, like you can say that legally, you're not lying if you say, oh, well, this is my watch I'm selling and it has a Seiko movement because you bought that Seiko to put in that movement. Otherwise, why the hell is Seiko selling movements? Why are they selling the NH35 if people aren't going to put them in watches? Would they think you just want to keep that a secret? People look for that Seiko NH35 because we know it's a time-tested, reliable, well-made movement. And so if you buy a microbrand watch and you see that it has that, you'd say, all right, cool, I'm getting a decent movement in this watch. So they don't want the manufacturer, though, actually saying that. Because if you're getting, let's say you get the Seiko watch, which uses the same movement with a different model number to be used in Seiko watches, and then you're getting an Oceaniva with an NH35 movement, and the Oceaniva is half the price. What is the motivation to buy the Seiko other than the name? That would be the only motivation to spend the extra money and say, oh, well, mine's a Seiko. When really you're getting, in a lot of regards, in my opinion, a superior watch with Oceaniva. Better specs, better construction, better quality. Again, now I don't want to make it like this because I work with, I'm saying, you know, you're getting a watch that's at least on par for a better price, right? And if we look at specs, better depth rating, all these things are legitimate reasons on why a watch might cost a little bit more. So again, this is where companies, he also told me a story about how back in the day, they used to, some of these brands would backdoor wholesale pricing on watches they weren't selling, right? So they'll backdoor these watches, say to a eBay seller, hey, this guy's on eBay. He's like, oh, I'm excited to, you know, try to make a little money and sell these Seiko watches. I got them for a third the price. I'm going to go ahead and put them on eBay. Well, then these companies like Seiko and I'm sure many other brands go after those eBay listings to prevent them from selling them. They got rid of their crap watches. I shouldn't say crap watches. They got rid of their watches. They were having a hard time moving, stuck somebody else the problem, and now they want to make it difficult for them to sell those watches because they're going to be providing them at a discount, and that's going to interfere with the potential profits they might get from the watches they really want to sell. So there's a big game being played in the watch community, and the sooner you guys realize that price does not dictate quality, the old saying that you get what you pay for is not true. Just use my check boxes, look at the specs of the watch, and make it a determination. But number one, do you like it? And that should be it for everybody. Whether it's a Rolex, whether it's an Omega, whether it's a brand that I would never, one, maybe can't afford, two, like a Rolex, would never want to spend my money on. You know, it just, everybody's going to have different reasons on why they buy what they buy. But just remember, at the end of the day, all these watches, if you follow my check boxes, it is impossible to state that a Rolex makes these other watches dog shit. It's just not logical. It's just not objective. It's not something that really, I've yet to see somebody put a Rolex on YouTube and put the Invicta on there under macro lens and really nitpick the watch. A guy, not me, I mean a guy with like an expert watchmaker, right? Somebody who can really show you the difference. I've yet to see somebody point out to me or to try to rationalize and show me objectively what the fuck you're paying for. So that's it, folks. I hope you enjoyed the video. Do you guys have any other questions before I cut? I don't want to make this an all-day thing. I think I've been on here for about an hour, 45 minutes, an hour. Let me just catch up on the rest of the comments and we'll close it up here. All right, so not many other comments here. Steel dive is actually what I got thinking about in the bronze watch. Yep, I think if you buy a steel dive, you'll definitely be happy. There is a steel dive I really want, but it's like $400. I'm just not going to pull the trigger. It is a homage to another watch. Let me see if I can find it real quick here. Steel dive. I think it's the SD. The fuck? What the hell happened here? Steel dive. SD 1982. What is this doing? What is happening here? Steel Dive 1982. This thing's just acting up. All right, so this is a so this is a homage. You guys gotta check this mofo out. It's a homage to the H2O Kalmar 2 Oceanic. I think it's the ability to go down 10 miles, the depth rating, the actual Kalmar. So very big, thick, chunky watch. What I kind of a lot of times I find myself lately gravitating towards watches that are becoming interested in watches that are smaller, like in that 40 to 42 millimeter, 44 millimeter size, but then a real thick size, real thickness to it. And this watch, definitely, I want this watch, but I'm not going to spend $400 on the Steel Dive. Although it's a beautiful watch, I'm sure it's a killer piece. Maybe Steel Dive will reach out someday and be like, hey, you want to review this? I'll be like, hell yeah. But definitely check it out. It's a badass looking watch. Let me give you guys a link here and see if let me see if it's any cheaper on Amazon. Steel Dive. I thought I found something the other day. Steel Dive 1982. Might not. I saw it on eBay for in the threes. Now they don't have it on Amazon. That's too bad. But damn, Cap, they got some. There's a bronze one. Yeah, the bronze ones by Steel Dive, you definitely pay into the fours for. Kind of pricey, to be honest with you, just for having a bronze watch. But anyway, a few more comments. Citizen Pro Dive the Orca. Rob said, "Nah, thanks for the talk." The Alien watch. I'm not sure what the Alien watch from the Alien movie. I'm not sure which one that is. And Adrian just said, does a $20,000 watch feel 100 times better than a $200 watch? I don't think so. I totally agree. Absolutely. I don't even think it feels any different whatsoever. I've yet to hold a luxury brand in my hand and say, oh my God, man, this is incredible. Like, it's not like having a great slice of pizza and then having like a slice of Domino's, right? In my opinion, it's like, it's not the same. It'd be one thing if that was the case. Or I grab a nice East Coast slice of Jersey pie, and then you compare that to, like, you know, they try to make, here's the comparison. Watch Subs try to make it be like you have this amazing, delicious, world famous slice of Jersey or New York tri-state area pie, pizza pie, for those who don't know, right? And then you take a bite of that, and you're like, oh, fuck, this is amazing. And then you go take like the 99-cent Geno's and take a bite. That's what they try to make the difference out to be. It's not the case at all. So, all right. So, Rob just said, I forgot the name of Ripley wears the movie. They have it in bronze. Yeah, I do think it's pretty cool. I just won't pay the money for them, but I do think it's interesting when I see a watch in a movie. It's a movie I like. I kind of want to add it to the collection. Like there was one the other day by, it was from the movie The Irishman, and De Niro, I think De Niro, or it's been a while since I've seen it, but one of the characters gets gifted a watch, and it is a, what's the name of it? Tissot. Oh man, it's a, hang on, give me a second. It's a watch from The Irishman. It is the, okay, I think I'm saying this right. Matthew Tissot. And so you can buy these watches. The one he had was like, I think solid gold or something, but you can buy the Matthew Tissot watches. You know, there's a lot of like homage Rolex ones on there for in that $150 to $300 price point. And I really wanted one just because it was from the movie and the name Matthew Tissot. I just was like, it's one for the collection. So I did reach out. Maybe I'll reach out again and see if I can get my hands on one. But I do agree, though, it's kind of fun to maybe pick up watches from movies. But, you know, sometimes like I'm just not going to spend the money that, because they tend to, watches that appear in movies tend to be more expensive in the market. So Kyle just said, Fat Cat. Yeah, man. Kyle just said, you're live. Yeah, man. I've been on for like 45 minutes, brother. Adrian said pizza, LOL. And then Rob said, why are Richard Milles so expensive? Markup, man. There's nothing fancy about Richard Milles. I have a friend who I met on YouTube. What the hell am I hearing? Weird. Sorry, guys. I keep hearing something here. What the fuck is that? Anyway. All right. So, he's got a $600,000 Richard Mille. It's like one of the titanium, super lightweight. It's like one of the limited edition pieces. And he actually discovered my channel from Invicta, and it made him buy. He did spend more than he needed to on a Invicta Venom Hybrid at the time. It was like $1,000, but he's obviously got money, so he bought it, and he'll be the first one to tell you there's no like you don't feel any real quality difference other than one being super lightweight, and that's kind of why you buy it because of the lightweight materials. But Richard Mille, another company. I'm not saying it's not a bad watch, but highly, highly marked up. And just think of any luxury brand. I'm going to flat out say that they're frankly a ripoff. I mean, that's really, they are ripping you off for you to sport their name. And the watch snob wants to make it about quality. No. That's not the reason. It's about quality. It's always about quality. And it's just complete bullshit. You can pick up any of these watches and compare it to, one of the many watches out there, and you're not going to be impressed. Sure. Are there differences? Absolutely. There's going to be little differences, but they're little differences. So, yeah, and then Rob has said I have a Richard Mille homage by Tudor. Yeah, I consider this Nubeo kind of like a Richard Mille. Anytime we see a watch that has a silicone band, it's really bright and colorful, and has this barrel type case, we can kind of say, oh, it reminds me of Richard Mille, because they're kind of known for that. I don't know who did it first, but this one here is a great representation of something I consider Richard Mille homage, although it's its own thing, but it's got that shape, love it. Colorful, fun. This one video is actually, I'm working on the video right now, so you guys will definitely check this out. This is part of their forged carbon line. It's got a forged carbon bezel that's laminated with like this turquoise or teal and black. It is really killer. I think I request this one in black and red as well, so stay tuned for that. The red is just fire. But I'll give you guys another example too. I'm hoping to try to maybe collaborate more, because you guys know I work with Nubeo. They send me watches all the time, all the Dartmouth brands. I review them on this channel, no surprise. And I've been trying to. What I like is that these are themed watches. So this one here is themed from, what is it? I forget the name of it, but there's basically a NASA probe that went towards the sun. I don't know how close it got, but my idea was to, I understand you may not want to make one watch one color, because you kind of eliminate some people who want to buy it. Not everybody wants a teal watch, right? Some people may say, oh, I love that watch, but I want it in black, right? So they make a different color, common sense, right? But I think these are limited edition, but it would be really nice for them to do one watch out of their series when they try to theme it. Because when you look at this watch, again, it is themed to this probe, right? But if we try to tie this watch what exactly makes this watch themed about that probe, other than it saying it on the back? Sometimes Nubeo will put like a exhibition window and like a stick figure of like a sketch of what they're trying to theme, right? But it's still very loose. Like you could very easily theme this from I mean, anything, right? This is a Starbucks watch and put a Starbucks logo on it, right? It's not really themed. You're just basically naming that. So my thought was, if you're going to have something that was, picture this for a second. If you have, this is, okay, we make them different colors, fine, the theme is loose, but have one super limited edition, 100 pieces, that is like really ties, kind of like the face of each particular model, right? One that really ties the theme together. Picture this watch done in like a combination of 3 colors, red, yellow, and orange, bright fluorescence, right? Because that's kind of what we think of when you look at the sun. Do the face kind of like when you look at like Google images of the sun, what that looks like. Have the hands be real colorful. Do this infused carbon with like a combination of those 3 colors. It would really like tie the watch into the theme they're trying to I guess tie to the watch. So I'm hoping maybe they'll listen to me a little bit on some of the designs and maybe move on that. I don't know, we'll see. But other than that, though, it's a great company. They make great stuff, and I'm really happy and fortunate to be able to work with them. So pretty cool. All right, closing it up here. Thoughts on? Give you guys another one. This video is gonna be released soon too. This is the Skylab by Nubeo. So I ordered this. I have it in the purple because I didn't have anything in purple. I have this coming in, I think, 2 other colors. So check that out. Very unique way that it tells time. Awesome looking watch. You guys this is, man, badass. And then, all right, we'll just get a couple more minutes. I don't want to leave yet. We have a couple watches here. We have another Nubeo. You'll be seeing this on the channel shortly. Then we have this one just came in, Cadola. I like this. Very simple black, but what really makes it is this kind of like hollowed out leather bracelet. Very cool. We have a tourbillon, folks. This is a new company I'm working with under Dartmouth called Shield. Got a tourbillon for you. Stay tuned for that. 2 other Shield watches. These are kind of cool. Not as cool as a tourbillon, but still very unique. Duxo is always fun. You got some cool Duxos. Get that rose gold with a sort of like a charcoal faux meteorite dial with some sort of gemstone indice. Sorry, it's kind of blurry. And the iced out bezel. Of course, we have what do we have here? What's that? And then we have one more, kind of a Duxo presidential. They sent the wrong one, so I have to request this again. I wanted the black mother of pearl. It was really smoky and cloudy. This is like a white mother of pearl. Still pretty, though. But still very cool. Nice stuff. Fun watches. Great quality. Links, yeah, man. Which link you want, Rob? Which link you looking for, sir? The fuck? Man, what the heck? I want to find this. You forgot me. All right, one more question, Rob. What do you think of Xerix? I've heard the name before. I got to go there, kind of refresh myself. Let's see. Let me see what they got. Yeah, so they're doing some NASA themed stuff too. Who's this guy? Let's see here. Oh, yeah, very unique. Yeah, very unique watches. There's one that just called me here. Yeah, it's actually very similar. You mentioned that. The Vendetta 2 has a very similar design, kind of like that three-hand, kind of a different way of telling time. Let me see what else they got here. Yeah, they're expensive. This one's kind of nice. Oh, I lost it. They have a lot of watches. I should reach out to. I probably have reached out to them at one point because for years before I had like consistent collaborations, I reach out to all watch companies. This one's pretty nice. The Halograph. I actually like this one. The Halograph 3. Not a bad price too. $299. Not bad. That's pretty nice. Gold. Got that old school shape, tonneau style case or barrel style case. I think it's called. Very cool. I really dig that watch. I wouldn't mind getting my hands on that. But kind of similar to the black one I just showed you. So anyway, folks, thanks for watching. I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to me talk about watches and some of my opinions about watches and watch buying. If you guys have any questions, you guys, my email address in the description of every single video. I respond to every question that I get. Feel free to get in touch. I'm always here to help out. Always here to help a watch collector add to his collection, and do subscribe to the channel. And if you are a watch snob, and I hope that you pop in, we never get any watch snobs in here. I don't know why. They just don't show their face up in here. It would be really nice to I don't know. It's always nice to get a different perspective, even though I'll never agree. But anyway, people do catch these watches on the rerun. So again, if you missed it, get in touch, and you guys have a fantastic day, and take care now.